Welcome back to the Engadget CES 2021 virtual show. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back for a roundtable, kind of in the halfway to late halfway mark of the day. I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe, and joining me for this Engadget roundtable today are senior editor Devendra Hardwar.
Hello.
We've got also senior news editor Richard Lawler and video producer Chris Schott. These are familiar faces from the Engadget team. Say hello to everyone.
Hello.
Yes, I didn't give you all a good break after your names to say hello there in an effort to sort of move this along. But this has been day one of CES so far. The day is not over, but this is kind of a good point as any to gut check and see all of the news that's been announced today thus far. We've got all of your different focus areas. We've got TVs. I know Devendra and Arlaw, Richard Lawler, you're both our home entertainment people. You're the experts on TVs. And we've got Chris, you're our chips person, and obviously just an all-around very knowledgeable person. So I just wanted to hear, let's start with Chris, because let's start with Richard, because we rarely ever get to hear from Richard.
The elusive Richard Lawler. We have found him.
We've finally been able to get you down to talk to us. What just kind of stood out at you from all of today's news, Richard?
The things that stood out to me actually started coming out in the last couple of weeks. We heard a lot about the TV plans from companies like Samsung and LG, more recently Sony. We got a lot of the mini LED technologies coming to Samsung and LG's LCD TVs. We also have the OLEDs with much better whites that will be rolling out later this year. And I think that's something that's going to be a big improvement for people who buy the high-end TVs. So if you're buying an OLED television, you're going to get better brightness than you've ever really seen before. And that was something that you had to sacrifice when you chose against an LCD. And now if you choose to buy an LCD television, you'll be able to get much better contrast than you've been able to get in previous years. So, it's really good news for everyone. And that's before we even get to today's announcement from TCL, where their 6 Series, all of their new 6 Series TVs for 2021 will be 8K. Now, Devendra and I, we've had our discussions about whether or not 8K is relevant or necessary, but it's certainly impressive, and it's kind of astounding to think that you'll be able to get that in a mainstream price this year.
For sure. I think like the idea, because last year we had this argument, and you could go look up our post between, is 8K overhyped or not? And when 8K costs a ton of money and there's none of the content out there for it or anything, and you're relying just on AI upscaling to make 4K and 1080 content look better, it's not that impressive. Why are you going to pay that money? But if you can get that price down to $1,000 or less, as TCL loves to do, and get into 6 Series, then sure, why not? Then it doesn't really matter, right? It's not like it's going to be a big deal. If 8K gets cheap enough where it's basically reaches parity with 4K pricing, then I won't have a problem with it. But certainly that content will not be here for a very long time, right? HBO just in December, finally upgraded to 4K HDR. We're going to have to wait a long time for 8K streaming. Just think of the bandwidth that would take up. It's insane.
That is nuts. I want to just talk real for a second here, but just all 4 of us here, I guess, right? Of all the TV brands there are making news out there at CES, for real, what is your favorite brand? Like, what would you buy for yourself? Let's start with you, Dev. You recently bought TVs, no?
Yeah, I did, but hey, I'm not a fan of brand loyalty. I do think every brand does something different very well, right? I think Sony is the best when it comes to image processing, because they are just so nerdy and so hardcore about that. Every year at CES, we go to what's called like a black box preview meeting, where they just black out a room and show us these super bright, cool Sony screens, and we see like how their tech works compared to everybody else's. LG, as we know, they're the leaders in OLED, and as far as tech goes, if you have the money, that's the best TV you can get right now. I really like TCL though as a brand that is able to bring, really high quality tech, good looking screens. They have Roku TVs, they're just such a great value. Late last year, I ended up buying TCL's 8 Series, the 65-inch, the first TV on the market with mini LED tech. I got that for $1,000. That was half the price that it was when it launched, at CES last year. So yeah, I like TCL when it comes to deals, but I think LG is the sort of company you'd probably want to look for just to have the best tech around.
Richard, do you agree?
I gotta say that I mostly do. Just like Dev, I bought a TCL the year before the 6 Series, before they added the mini LED technology to it. But it was very impressive, and it's really performed well. If you're looking for something that gets you a lot for a little money, that's the one to go with. LG, just as he said, is incredibly impressive with their OLED. They also have released software upgrades so that you can do things like VRR and G-Sync. So for gamers, there's really no better choice. I would also bring in Vizio. I'm currently testing a television that has the HDMI 2.1, and it just received an update. There are some issues with the HDMI 2.1 features, really on all the TVs at this point, but they are going ahead and getting those fixed. And I think that's something that you want to think of if you kind of want to split the difference between quality and price.
Chris, what do you think? You're also somewhat of a TV fan.
Yeah, so I feel like I have a weird perspective because I do work in video and photography and things like that.
Right.
For
That's good perspective.
But personally, for almost a decade, my only TV was a $250 Element TV that was just HD from Best Buy. And but I did recently take the plunge and upgrade. You can see the corner of my LG OLED here, which really was kind of revolutionary. I do think those screens are incredibly impressive, and really like LG's price per value seems like a really good proposition if you do want something on the higher end. I mean, the bit of technology we saw here that I think is really exciting is Samsung's. I feel like I'm going to screw it up. It's not the mini LED, it's the micro LED.
Yes, micro LED.
The micro LED.
But, Samsung is finally bringing down this micro LED technology, which is essentially kind of like OLED, where the individual pixels are actually creating the light. There's no backlight, but it's not based on these organic compounds that can degrade, or it doesn't have as much risk of burn-in and things like that. So I think that's pretty exciting tech. Though right now you can still only get it in I think 110-inch screen that I don't even want to know the price tag on. I feel like it's a ways away from real adoption, but we're seeing our first at least vaguely reasonable products using that technology, and I think that'll be pretty exciting as we keep going with it.
For sure, right? Like I think talk about big TV prices, right? The 85-inch LG 8K OLED from last year, that thing cost $30,000. So that's the price range you're dealing with for this. I think we had tried to spec out the wall, the last micro LED TV from Samsung last year. That thing was easily over $300,000 because you have to buy these individual panels and get it installed. So $30,000 to $50,000. That's probably where these micro LED TVs will end. But it's cool tech. It looks good from what we've seen.
Yeah, we know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we do know it'll get cheaper. OLEDs were incredibly expensive when they first launched, but yeah, I wouldn't expect that one to show up in your living room in the next year or two. Maybe give it a little longer.
For sure. I wanted to say, Richard, you mentioned Vizio just now when you were talking about some TV brands, and Hisense is also a brand that's going to be having news here at CES if they haven't already announced it. And I feel like people who have tuned into our live stream all day long today, which thank you, by the way, if you have, will probably already have sort of heard a version of these announcements. Samsung, LG, we covered, but there's also a lot of news that's happening outside of these big keynotes events. And at Engadget.com, obviously, we've been covering all of it. Richard, I'm not sure if you're up to speed, but you're one of our news desk editors. Has anything that you've been seeing over the last few days outside of these big TV and chip and laptop related announcements jumped out at you?
Well, you mentioned Hisense. They also revealed new versions of their laser TV projector setup, and they have a rollable screen. It's really a rollable projector screen. But if what you want is the biggest screen that you can get, then that's really a good choice for you. They also have, of course, 4K and 8K televisions as well. More of these smaller manufacturers that we usually see at CES aren't quite as present this year in this virtual event, but I think we'll still see them rolling out on shelves later this year.
And you said rollable. That really just brought to mind for me, I think, a few different concepts that we saw, right? TCL at its own press conference unveiled a 17-inch sort of a scroll that you open it up. It's a rollable screen that you unfurl, and it becomes a 17-inch tablet of sorts.
Sure.
And TCL obviously is one of the brands that we have mentioned a few times, but we didn't really go in depth into their news. Did either of you, Devendra or Richard, feel very impressed by what TCL had to announce on the TV front? Devendra, do you think there was anything that stood out?
I mean, basically everything we talked about already. I think we don't know. I honestly, they've been quiet about the next 8 series, which is kind of surprising. But the TCL 6 series, all the new models are gonna be getting 8K, that's a pretty notable achievement, right? Because it's the first time a manufacturer has basically committed an entire line to being 8K long before that content's going to be available. Richard, you were saying the existing 6 series will probably still stick around, and those have mini LEDs. So 8K plus mini LED 6 series in the future, that's kind of impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
And the 8K is... It is perhaps a little bit ahead of its time, and as Devendra mentions, getting any kind of content to your house is just unreasonable. The bandwidth constraints make it impossible. But we will see some things in gaming, and we've already heard some interesting news from developers about things that they might be able to do in games that can run at that resolution. The PS5 does not support 8K yet, but you may have noticed that sticker on the box. The Xbox Series X should be able to output 8K when there are games that can do it. And there are things that developers have talked about where when you're looking at the edges of things, like at that high of a resolution, it really just disappears. So for gamers, there may be more of a reason to opt for 8K than other things. They also revealed their XL line of TVs that's coming out. So if what you want is just the biggest screen, they're going to have 3 different models in 85-inch sizes. And kind of the lower end 4 series model, I think they said the price will start at about $1,600. So if you've got space for that, that's something to look out for.
Really quickly, I also wanted to say that TCL didn't just announce TVs. TCL also makes other stuff. They have a new 20 series smartphone that they unveiled, and then also a new Next Paper tablet, which is based off of Next Paper technology for paper-like displays. These are color, sort of e-ink but not e-ink displays based on LCD. They're very low power, and they don't have backlights. And finally, it is available in a tablet that will be. You can purchase it in most parts of the world for about 349 euros. No word yet on US availability, but for all the details of that, you can check out our coverage on Engadget.com. And then TCL also announced its wearable display. So this is a company that has in the past said to us that you should think of them as sort of a Samsung. They have TVs, but they also have phones, tablets, wearable displays. I mean, that's your take, but the company has definitely made a good name for itself in the TV space. So that's some stuff that we didn't really get to cover if you've just been tuning in on the video show. I wanted to say, Chris, what else stood out to you of the news from CES so far?
Well, there's some of the stuff that, we just did see from Samsung in their keynote, which is very in the kind of moonshot, maybe not a product yet, but they at least are suggesting they're really pushing some home robotics and automation.
Right.
Which, I'm not convinced those. I guess they did. They legitimately announced a robotic vacuum, a sort of Roomba of sorts. So they are releasing some robots, but there's also one that they say can load your dishwasher, and another that maybe just reminds you to get up and stretch, which I'm not sure you need a robot to walk around and tell you to do that. But maybe all of us working from home, you in fact do. But I think it's. Robotics is a frontier I'm really curious about. We actually have relatively few functional robot products that are independent entities that can move around and manipulate stuff in our house, really, aside from the vacuums. But it's interesting that Samsung at least is really making it clear from their presentation this year that is something they are exploring. Whether or not we will ever get a dishwasher loading robot from them, I think, is another question.
Yeah, the bot handy was definitely a topic of interest when we were going over Samsung's keynote in the post-show recap. I do want to shout out the live chat right now where we have an audience featuring some of our regulars. I'd like to shout out to Mark Dell. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you to everyone that's tuning in right now. We keep getting a question. Now, this is still sort of just 3:47 p.m. Eastern. There's still a few more hours to go in the day for CES coverage. So there's Intel is having another keynote later today at 4 p.m. Eastern, where we expect they'll probably have more traditional chip news, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. There's also Sony at 5 p.m. Eastern, which we will be streaming here on the Engadget YouTube channel and Engadget.com as well. So you can always just stay tuned for that. Right now, though, Chris, I know you're fairly also familiar with Intel products, along with Devindra. Can you tell us, Chris, though, what are you expecting to see from Intel?
So they've been pushing really their 11th gen laptop chips and their I think they're calling it Project Evo now. It used to be Project Athena.
Yes,
it's just Intel Evo. Yeah,
Intel Evo.
Not right. No project. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
The names are a little confusing, but it's an interesting. It's not a chip itself. It's a set of specifications they want laptops to hit, including like very fast wake from sleep and good battery life. I mean, Intel a couple years ago really started targeting performance in like the 15-watt ultrabook laptop space, and it is one of the areas they've actually had kind of a fair amount of progression and forward momentum. With that, I mean, I'm hoping we do get more details on 11th gen chips. We may get really like concrete definitive details on the 11th gen desktop platform, though I'm not positive if we'll be seeing that at this show or later in the spring. But they're the 11th gen laptop chips. I was a little skeptical at first. They got announced, and it took us a long time to really start seeing them show up. But they've actually had pretty impressive performance. This is a new core architecture from Intel and a refinement of their manufacturing process, and they seem fairly impressive. So I'm hoping we get some more of those chips and some more computers actually using them that you can go out and buy.
I want to take a step back and just kind of ask you guys, what are some of the wilder things you've seen so far? For me, it's been like this strange wearable joystick that you can wear on your wrist by ArcX. And it'll allow you to interact with your phone when you're running without being distracted by your phone screen, or when you're cycling. So that's one of the more interesting things I've seen so far. Has anything like that jumped out at you, Richard?
I can't think of anything that's truly surprised me on that kind of level. Samsung did roll out their configuration technology, the C-Lab, that kind of works with your phone, which is really impressive. And I think that's something that's going to change things for people to be able to get a much better calibration at home. But no, I haven't seen anything truly extraordinary. And, really, unfortunately, not only do I miss seeing all of you in Las Vegas, but I miss seeing all of the televisions in person.
I think you miss the TVs more than us, Richard. Let's be honest. But
I'm not going to say.
Devindra, you're saying, sorry.
Oh, no, I think that's absolutely true. The big thing we're missing this year is not only the camaraderie and seeing everybody, and we're all usually held up in like a little trailer just working and typing all day, but we actually get to go to the show floor and see these products. And it's going to be a really hard year to cover things like new TVs and whatnot, because we're just going based on what these companies are saying, right? We can't actually see them in person yet. Maybe in the middle of the year, I almost wonder if some companies, if vaccines are going out and things are safer and we can actually safely do a group event, I wonder if any of these companies would do something to try to actually get eyes on these new products. But I don't know, like maybe at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter for them. Like they'll send it to reviewers, they'll send TVs out. Maybe by next year, we'll be able to do a safe CES. I just miss seeing all these products in person. We complain a lot about the CES experience because Vegas, not a great town. It is a very tiring show where we're running around all day and I clock so many steps on my, Apple Watch. But there is something to be said for actually seeing these products, because that kind of informs how we look at products for the rest of the year. And without that, I do feel like we're going to be a little limited when it comes to talking about this new stuff.
Chris, this will be your second CES with Engadget? Is that right? Am I mistaken?
I think this is my third, though I'm trying to remember.
Maybe.
They all sort of blur together, but
yeah,
this is number 3, I believe.
But for CES's overall, how many have, I mean, I'm just trying to figure because I think Devindra and Richard have been to more CESs than I have for sure. I was just wondering what your overall experience with CES has been like, whether you have clocked fewer than I have or more.
Probably fewer, but I did once with the BBC and then once with Tom's Hardware. So this is my fifth, but I've only gone to Vegas 4 times. So.
Do you miss being in Vegas for a trade show?
It's not, no, it's not my favorite.
You can say no.
I'm getting to actually go make hands-on videos. One of my, favorite parts of this work is going and filming cool things and getting to show them to people. And clearly there's less opportunity for that now. And every now and then you do get to find a real gem you really are excited to show people about. And it is a little weirder to be here and sort of just be handed what's available to take a look at by the companies instead. But yeah, I think I pretty routinely put about 30,000 steps on my smartwatch when I was there per day, and I don't miss that. Though on the flip side, I may not leave my house today, and I'm not sure that's better.
I have certainly been stuck on this one bench all day, not being able to move anywhere, and it has definitely been a very different CES experience. But actually, if you think about it, we're having a similar experience or CES experience to the one our audience would usually have every year, right? I mean, I said this in our welcome remarks this morning. This is the first time we're experiencing CES the way most of our readers would have if they hadn't, been able to visit the show floor for themselves. And so this big difference is really to us. But honestly, I feel like those of you at home, this is pretty much what you're going to, we're getting the same experience as you now. And now we have the time to engage with you on social media and on the YouTube live chat. So make sure you're hitting us up. I mean, I'm on Twitter at Sherlyn Lowe. Devindra, you're?
At Devindra on Twitter.
And Richard, are you okay with people hitting you up on Twitter, or did you prefer to?
Of course, I'm a very nice and pleasant Twitter personality at RJCC anytime.
Yeah, if you want to start a Twitter fight, ping
RJCC is the one to find. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah, likewise, I'm just at Chris Schott, so you can come see pictures of my cats. That's most of what it is.
That's the content people are looking for. I mean, we're almost out of time for this roundtable. Did any of the three of you have any final thoughts to throw out there?
What
just
are you
as you mentioned,
to, right?
Okay, well, let's start with Richard because he said something that sounded more interesting.
You mentioned missing being in Las Vegas. The most memorable unveilings that I remember are things that didn't actually happen in Las Vegas. So long ago, I remember when Apple used to have their show counter-programming CES, and they unveiled things like the MacBook Air or the iPhone during the show. And you would hear about these things, and it was just absolutely remarkable. And that was nice to experience in person with the team. So I guess I'll still miss that.
Just even today, right? We had something similar happen. Didn't Microsoft have a surprise announcement for us today, Devindra?
They did, but it was not that important. It was a new commercial, version of the Surface Pro 7. It's like, okay, fine. But there's little surprises we will not get. I'm wondering what people are looking forward to, but I think we're running out of time, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, any last words, Chris, before we wrap it up?
I'm just always hoping for camera news. That's kind of my niche aside from processors and things like that. I'm not sure we have anything on the schedule this year, really. Last year we got a pretty impressive camera from Canon that I got to check out, and I'm going to miss having some hands-ons like that. But if we get any big announcements, I'm always excited to hear about new cameras out there for sure.
Indeed. So anyways, please keep it locked to Engadget.com. For the rest of today, coming up, we have more for you, including a panel from me about laptops in 2021 and beyond. And then we have the Sony press conference at 5 p.m., followed by a post-show recap. And then come back tomorrow for more of the same. We really enjoy hanging out with you, y'all. Make sure to, thank you, first of all, for watching with us. And then make sure to come back, like I said. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for talking.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.